Flames crawl across the ceiling as the dark-haired woman with a thin wrist scar runs into the smoke. Something moves behind her son, and it is not the fire. The broad-shouldered man with a trimmed beard lies motionless near the stairs. The boy stands untouched in the center of the heat. A tall silhouette bends toward the boy as if shielding him. The woman screams a name she hasn't spoken in decades. Hours earlier, the house had been quiet. The boy refused to sleep unless every light was off. He whispered into the corner of his room, pausing as if listening. No one else answered. The woman watched from the doorway, unsettled. He had always feared the dark before. At school, he stopped speaking to classmates entirely. Teachers began documenting sudden outbursts. He drew the same tall figure repeatedly. Long arms. No face. The school demanded a meeting. The woman sat rigid while accusations stacked up. At home, she thought she saw two faint lights in a closet. They vanished when she stepped closer. The boy insisted his friend preferred silence. He said the friend did not like being discussed. The broad-shouldered man with a trimmed beard laughed it off. Children invent companions all the time. The woman visited her dying mother that afternoon. Machines hummed steadily beside the bed. The elderly woman with silver hair spoke about a dream. She said something had returned to the family. That night, the boy asked for an extra plate at dinner. He said someone else was hungry. The woman forced a smile. The air around the table felt crowded. The next morning, a call from school described violence. A classmate had been shoved down concrete steps. The boy claimed he had been told to do it. He would not say by whom. They sought help from a bespectacled middle-aged man with graying temples. He listened without interrupting. When the boy quietly spoke the friend's name, the therapist froze. Recognition flickered before he masked it. The bespectacled middle-aged man with graying temples ended the session early. He said they would continue privately with the mother. Outside, the boy stared at the parking lot's shadows. He waved once, as if someone stood between the cars. That evening, the elderly woman with silver hair passed away. The call came as the house lights flickered. Grief hollowed the room. The boy whispered that the friend was pleased. At the hospice to collect belongings, a faint tapping echoed from below. No staff member claimed it. In the basement storage room, an old alphabet toy lit briefly. It spelled a single letter before dying. She brought the toy home despite knowing it was broken. The boy refused to touch it. At the community playground, he seemed almost normal. Laughter returned for an hour. Then she saw a second shadow moving beside him. It matched his pace but not his shape. The boy suddenly collapsed. When she reached him, he opened one eye and smiled. That night, the empty plate returned to the table. This time, food disappeared from it. The broad-shouldered man with a trimmed beard accused her of encouraging delusion. He demanded logic. She began slipping mild sedatives into the boy's juice. She told herself it was temporary. The boy vomited before school. He said the friend warned him not to drink it. The broad-shouldered man with a trimmed beard discovered the medication. Trust fractured instantly. In the night, the alphabet toy activated alone in the hallway. It spoke her name clearly. The shadowy human-shaped figure with elongated limbs appeared at the stair landing. It did not look at the boy. It faced the dark-haired woman with a thin wrist scar directly. She recognized the posture from childhood. The next session with the therapist changed everything. He retrieved a sealed archive from decades ago. On the recording, a young voice described the same tall friend. The voice was hers. The therapist admitted he had treated her for violent episodes as a child. The details had been sealed. He believed the entity attached to her, not the boy. It had simply waited. Driving home, she tried calling her husband repeatedly. Each call failed. Inside, the broad-shouldered man with a trimmed beard sensed movement behind him. The air felt compressed. The lights burst one by one. The house plunged into absolute dark. The shadowy human-shaped figure with elongated limbs stepped between him and the front door. Escape closed. When she reached the street, smoke already spilled from the windows. Neighbors had not yet noticed. Inside, heat blurred her vision. She found the boy untouched near the staircase. The broad-shouldered man with a trimmed beard did not move when she shook him. The floor cracked beneath them. The shadowy human-shaped figure with elongated limbs hovered in the smoke, almost protective of the boy. She promised aloud to return if it released her son. The heat seemed to pause. The boy's body slackened as if strings were cut. The path to the door cleared. Outside, sirens finally approached. The house began to collapse inward. The therapist arrived at the hospital uninvited. He said the pattern had completed itself once before. He warned that fire would not end it. The attachment required a willing surrender. She left the hospital that night without telling anyone. The boy slept under watch. She drove toward her abandoned childhood bedroom. The road felt narrower than she remembered. The shadowy human-shaped figure with elongated limbs waited inside. It did not approach. She boarded the windows and doors from within. If it wanted her, it would have only her. Her phone vibrated with missed calls about the boy. She turned it off and sat in the dark. Morning light forced its way through cracks in the boards. The shadowy human-shaped figure with elongated limbs stood closer than before. It traced slow circles on the wall with one extended finger. The pattern matched drawings from her son's notebook. Her phone powered on by itself despite being dead. A missed call notification flashed from the hospital. A voicemail played automatically. The therapist's voice warned that the boy was asking for her repeatedly. The shadow moved between her and the door. It tilted its head, blocking her exit. She promised to stay if it left the boy alone permanently. The air tightened around her throat. Across town, the boy slipped out of the hospital room unnoticed. Security cameras later showed him walking calmly. He followed something only he could see. His steps never hesitated. The therapist realized the pattern too late. He rushed toward the nearest rail crossing. The boy stood directly on the tracks at dusk. He was speaking softly to empty space. A distant horn echoed through the air. The shadow stretched long across the rails. In the boarded bedroom, she felt the vibration before hearing anything. The floorboards trembled under her knees. The shadow turned its head sharply, as if listening to a distant call. Its form flickered. She understood the bargain was failing. It had never intended to let him go. On the tracks, the therapist shouted the boy's name. The horn grew louder. The boy did not react. The shadow stood behind him like a guardian. In the bedroom, she grabbed a broken mirror shard from the floor. Her hand did not shake. She pressed the glass to her own wrist scar. The shadow leaned closer, attentive. She cut deep enough to draw blood but not to collapse. Pain anchored her resolve. She spoke clearly, revoking every promise made in childhood. She declared herself no longer available. On the tracks, the boy blinked suddenly. Confusion replaced his calm stance. The shadow behind him thinned like smoke. The horn was seconds away. The therapist lunged forward and tackled the boy off the tracks. Gravel tore through his suit. The train thundered past where the boy had stood. Wind flattened the grass around them. Back in the bedroom, the shadow screamed without sound. Cracks split across the ceiling. She dragged the mirror shard across the old alphabet toy she had brought. Sparks burst briefly. The toy lit one final time. It spelled a word that meant farewell. The shadow collapsed inward like folded fabric. The room felt suddenly empty. Silence replaced the pressure in her ears. Even the house seemed lighter. At the tracks, the boy began crying for the first time in weeks. He asked where his friend went. The therapist gave no answer. He simply held the boy steady until the shaking stopped. Emergency lights approached from the road. The crisis had ended without a funeral. In the bedroom, she collapsed against the wall, conscious but fading from blood loss. Neighbors eventually forced the door after noticing broken boards. She was found barely responsive. At the hospital, doctors stabilized her condition. The wound would scar deeper than before. The boy visited days later. He avoided the corner of the room instinctively. She asked him gently if he still saw anything unusual. He shook his head. The therapist confirmed no further incidents at school. Reports had stopped completely.